Okay, so today our class will be on apparel terminology and testing of apparel. Okay, so this is one of the questions which I've seen in 2017 January. So which of the following is a theory of clothing? Individuality, conformity, tattooing, modesty. This is one question, and we'll be seeing the answers about this. And another question is color, seams, texture, when put together, create a structural design. And a structural design is an inherent part of the garment. Okay, so based on these two questions and many more, we'll be discussing different things. It's like an overall picture of the apparel design module. I have not covered like everything from a particular topic. I have just taken together some important points, which a lot of people find it difficult to learn, especially who do not have a background in home science. Okay, so coming to theories of clothing, the first one is theories of clothing. Like, what are the different theories? Like, we have a theory that says that clothing serves practical purposes and is designed for specific functions such as protection, modesty, and comfort. So functionalism is how does clothing function, or what is the function of clothing? So that is functionalism theory. So you can see the three words, key words are protection, modesty, comfort. So you can see that in the question we had seen, which of the following is a theory of clothing? Individuality, tattooing, conformity. So the word is modesty. Okay. So we can see the answer for this question is modesty, because it actually comes in this theory. That is a theory of functionalism, because it says protection, modesty, and comfort. So modesty comes in this theory. Okay. So functionalism, the theory is all about how it functions. The next theory is symbolic interactionism. It means that clothing is something, it has some symbolic meanings, and individuals use clothing to communicate and interact with others, to show your personality, etc. Okay, so that is one of the theories. And then another is the fashion theory. Like, fashion is a process that keeps changing, and styles, and it's different, depends on different factors like culture, media, and social class. So this is about theory of clothing. Okay, now coming to this now coming to different aspects like structural design and decorative design. So just by seeing this picture itself, it's very clear. What is this? It's a skirt, right? Now structure is how it is, essentially what structure it has. And when it comes to a decorative design, means if there is some embellishment, if there is some extras which are not exactly needed. For example, if this alone is a skirt, okay, but when there is some decorative elements to it, so you see some dots, some colors, etc. are added to it, so it's just becoming decorative. Okay, so adding all those extra is your decorative design. Whatever comes here, those dots, the colorful dots are the decorative aspect of it. So this is basically it, structural and decorative design. So structural design is basically all that, what are the structures of it, okay, like the colors, the borders, seams, texture, everything is a part of the uh, of the of the garment or a design. Okay, and when they, for example, for a shirt, when you're having a shirt will have collar, it will have sleeves, it will have pocket. All these are part of the structure. Okay, but if there isn't some print or some design on it, that is a decorative aspect. So basically structural design is an inherent part of the garment. So actually these two are correct. So assertion is colors, seams, and textures when put together create a structural design is correct, and a structural design is the inherent part of the garment. That is also true. So the answer for this question is both A and R are true, and R is a correct explanation, because structural design is the inherent part of the garment. You see that color, seam, texture is a part of the the design. Okay, so now we'll see what are colors, seams, texture, etc. I have discussed in some classes, but I'll just give a recap. Okay, let's see what are the different parts of the apparel. Now, most of you are from another background, not fashion. So I want you to be very familiar with these terms, so that you don't find it difficult to, when you see these terms, you don't find it difficult to understand. Okay. So you see the upper part of the garment covering the torso, usually from the shoulder to the waist, is called as a bodice. Okay. So when you're like having the, you're taking measurements, especially when you're, doing women's garments, you take a bodice measurement. So it is from here, from the shoulder to the waist or hips. This is the bodice. Okay, this is the upper part of the garment. Then sleeve, of course, you all know sleeve. I don't have to explain what is a sleeve, something that covers the arm. Okay, it can be short, long, sleeveless. So we'll be discussing about sleeves. Now, cuff is what is like at the end of the sleeve. So this is like the shirt cuffs. You see this? There are different, just see, look at this is I hope this, okay, just a minute. This is a part of the shirt that is at the end of the sleeve. Okay, that is called as a cuff. And it can be at the end of the pant leg also. So the end of it, that is called as a cuff. Okay. For example, in leggings and all, you have the end of it, right? So sometimes the cuff, you can see the shirt, sometimes have an angled cuff or a rounded cuff, a square cuff, etc. So it depends. So that is the end of the sleeve or a pant leg. Neckline is the opening at the top of the garment. Here you need is like a square neck. So you can see this is the square type neck. Come in various styles such as crew neck, V neck, scoop neck, so many neck styles. I'm sure whoever has gone to design your clothes, etc., give it for a tailor to stitch, they will ask you what type of neckline you want. Now coming to dart. Dart is something which is used to shape a garment for a better fit. For example, especially for women's garments, you get see like all those places where you can see these extra stitches that come. All these lines you see. So it gives that, extra better fit or that shape to the garment. So you see these are different darts. Okay. So these are actually giving, especially around the bust or waist or hip, wherever there are curves, all those places where it is curvy, you require these darts so that it becomes more, it can, it doesn't fit like it's not like a shirt, right? Women's garments are not like men's garments, so they need more darts, okay, because it requires more, there are more curves to it, okay. Now coming to the next word is waistband. So whatever is covering the band which covers the waist, this is the waistband. Then comes collar. Of course, everybody is familiar with the collar. This is the collar. Then comes a yoke, which is a separate, a yoke, you can see it is a separate section of the fabric at the shoulder or the waist. You see, it is an extra fabric. So, for example, in shirt and all, you can see it will be on top of the shirt. You see, this is an extra fabric. Okay, another cloth which is stitched on top of that shirt. Okay, even in women's neckline, etc., you can see some yoke part, which is an extra fabric, okay, for decorative purposes or for shaping. So usually for the shirt, it's upper back. Okay, there will be a yoke at the back, upper back. I'm sure all of you have noticed it. So you can see this is the cuff, the sleeve pocket is there, the sleeve is there, this is the armhole, and then we'll see about what is the placket, etc. Now coming to a very important term, which is called seam. A seam is where two or more pieces of the fabric are joined together by stitching. Okay, what is a seam? When two pieces of fabric needs to be stitched together, that is called as a seam. Okay. So usually in all our clothes, we get to see a normal plain seam. Okay. So it looks like this on the outside. Now what is seam allowance? Now seam allowance means the distance. So when you put the dress upside or ulta, when you put it upside down, I mean inside out, yeah, inside out, when you put the dress inside out, you can see there is a seam line, right, where the stitching occurs at the raw edge of the fabric. Okay, so usually what happens is, we will have a we want to have a more seam line, especially who are, if you tend to gain weight, etc., you need remove the stitches, or if you want to make it tighter, etc., the seam allowance helps to do it, to make a change, all the alterations. So it is a very good impact for an overall fit structure of the garment. So seam allowance is the extra piece which is there inside of the garment. Then right side and wrong side is there. Of course, right side is where you want to, this is the right side, okay, which is what is visible to the eye, and the wrong side is inside, okay, which is concealed or just inside, is hidden. Seam finishes is like how the edge, the raw edge, how it is being finished. So sometimes you can see inside, just look inside your garment, you can see the inside of the stitched garment. You can see sometimes it will be, zigzag, cut zigzag. Sometimes it will be, interlocked, etc. So you can see these are the different types of seams. So you see normal plain seams are there. So one thing is plain seam is just stitching both of the garments, I mean fabrics together. That's it. Put the right sides together. That's it. Then coming, top stitch is like both this, they slide with each other. This is the way in which the top stitch are there. So you can see this is another way. Seam, plain seam is there. Press seam elements to one side. Okay. So the seam elements is pressed to the one side. Then comes French seam. You can see this is like it is folded and kept, and the wrong sides are pinned together, and it is stitched along the seam, the seam line. Okay, you can see how the fabric pieces are. What do you say? It is held together in a French seam. Now, in a Welsh seam, the French seam, you see that is both the fabrics are folded inwards. But in the case of Welsh seam, only one fabric is folded together. You can see this is a Welsh seam. You can see here it is a Welsh seam. You see one part is lying there. Then in other ways, flat fell, you can see this here. You can see this picture, how it is being folded and how it is being stitched. Okay, there is piped seam. So when you want to have a piping, another type of cloth is inserted between the two seams. Okay. Okay, so that was about seams. You have different types of seam: plain seam, top stitch, French, welt, flat fell, piped, etc. Now coming to the next part is the hem. Hem means what is the finished edge of or the bottom of the garment. For example, in a t-shirt or a kurta or any salwar or something like that, how does the end look like? So that is the edge of the bottom of the garment. So sometimes you can see it will be curved, it can be straight, layered, depending on the design. So in kurtas, in women's garment and all, you can see different patterns. Like you might see asymmetrical pattern, like one is like a diagonal line or something like that. So it can be the end of the garment, how it looks. Okay, that is called as a hem. Now coming to placket. Now placket is any opening. For example, in a shirt, we have two parts of the shirt are coming together, right? So you can see there is an opening. So it allows for easy opening and closing. Sometimes, so how does you can see different types of plackets are there. It can be button. It can be, sometimes the buttons are visible and sometimes the buttons are invisible. Then you can see there are, hooks and eye can be used. So many types of plackets are there. Okay. Then slit or vent. You can see, I'm sure all of you have heard the word slit. Now, there's another term to it, vent. Okay, it's an opening in the garment for ease of movement, especially for women's kurtas and all. You can see there is a slit, right? So that, you can easily walk, and so it's very easy to walk, etc. So back of skirts, jackets and all, slits are very common. Now coming to the next one is pleat. The word pleat. Pleat is like when you're folding the fabric and allows some, fullness. For example, I'm sure this, you can see this, particular design is a pleat. Okay. There are different types of pleats here. You can see this is a, okay, wait. So there are different types of pleats. Okay, it's like inverted pleats, knife pleats, so box pleats, different types of pleats are there. So it's especially used for in the case of skirts. Okay. The next one is lining. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the lining also. So what is something like inside of the garment? So a layer of fabric which is sewn inside the garment to provide structure, finish, or even comfort. Usually in jacket, dresses, skirts, and everything, or something which is put inside. That is called as a lining. Now facing is when the piece of fabric is sewn on the inside to finish some raw edges. For example, on the neckline, etc. An extra piece of fabric is sewn on the inside of the garment to finish the raw edges. So it is all usually in the edges, like in the case of an armhole or a neckline, etc. So usually it is there in the buttonhole or anywhere which is, so that is called as a facing. Okay, an extra piece of fabric. So you can see this, the different pictures you can see here, types of facing. We're coming to the sleeves. There are different types of sleeves. I have mentioned in a one previous year question discussion, the different types of sleeves and collars have been discussed. I hope you go through them. I'll be sharing it in the group. Hope you can go through these PYQ. One of the PYQs, it's detailing on the different types of sleeves, etc. Now coming to the next part of it, it is testing of garments. Okay, testing of fabric, testing of fiber, testing of textiles in general. Okay, so this is the next part of the PowerPoint. So here we can see, how do you define, why do you need to test? So testing is usually done for that, you are actually, you want to how definition of quality can be given by degree to which a set of inherent characteristics fulfill the requirement. So there will be some inherent characteristics and we need to go as per those requirements. So there will be different, different standards will be there. For example, the ISO standards, etc. So quality is a degree to which a set of inherent characteristics fulfill the requirements. So then we will have a particular requirement, and all of, if our fiber or fabric or garment is meeting to that requirement, that is what we are going to test. So earlier it was like, if they will have a product specification and you do a inspection, but from 2010 onwards there is something called as a total quality management. Okay, total quality management means there should be zero defect and meet the requirement of the society. So different parameters have come, and overall there should be no defect. So that is what is a quality, total quality management. Now coming to how how do you check quality, especially in the textile sector? The first method is by visual inspection. Visual inspection is, of course, when you're going to a shop, when you look at a garment or a fabric or anything, you will, from the first sight itself, what we rely on is visual inspection, right? As common people, we rely on visual inspection. So what we do is, we look at it. If we see any, if there is any loose fibers are there, if there is, the stitching is not proper, you can understand. And that is how layman inspects it. And what about the inspectors or people who are professionals here, who are the quality checkers, inspectors? So what they do is, they can use certain testing instruments. So what we do is called as a subjective evaluation. So we are doing something which is very subjective. If one dress might be okay for me, there are certain, the color has faded, but I find it okay, it is cheap and I don't mind it, so that is okay for me. But for some another person, it might not be okay. So that is what is called subjective evaluation, because it is subjective to different people. It is different from different people. But objective evaluation is when you do it in a testing instrument. So the instrument is very particular. You're telling that, okay, this has this thread count, it is not good. So it is very objective. Now coming to another techniques is also, qualitative techniques will be there and quantitative techniques will be there. For example, thread count is a quantitative technique because you have a measure for it. But qualitative technique means a feel of the garment or something like that, just completely something which cannot be measured in numbers. Okay, so those are the qualitative techniques. Whereas quantitative is if you have particular numbers to it. That is what is quantitative numbers. Okay. So what all are there in inspection? So first of all, you have to check the raw materials, all the fibers, the yarns, then monitoring the production, assessing the final product. And after the whole production is over, you have to investigate the faulty material. You need to minimize the variations so that there is no buyer-seller disputes in the later stage. So you need to follow, investigation of faulty material, so that there is any earlier whatever complaints have been registered. For example, what all complaints did you get earlier? Analysis of the different customer complaint, identification of fault in machine, etc. All these things can be done so that there is minimal damage or minimal customer complaints. Now you see, so visual inspection is the activity such as measuring, examining, gauging one or more characteristics of a product and comparing the result with the specific requirements. Okay. So this is how it is done. So professionals will inspect the garment and from maybe with huge sampling, like in big factories and all, there will be lots of like thousands or lakhs of fabric will be produced. So they will just randomly inspect some of them, or they might inspect the whole lot of it. Okay. So the it is used to examine the yarn defect, fabric defect, fabrication defects, design, color. Sometimes the color might fade, etc. Okay. So for how do you take the garments or fabric for inspection? That is called as sampling. Just like have you studied research sampling? That is, you can't take the entire thing. So what you see is what do you say? By testing, we come to know the characteristics, performance, and process suitability of the raw material. So since all the material cannot be tested, we follow the sampling technique. So as I mentioned, lakhs of materials will be produced. So what they do is they take a sample, a specific quantity of the material or a collection of units will be offered for inspection and acceptance at one time. Okay, that is called as a lot or a sample. Okay, it is a specific quantity of material which is made for inspection. So then lot sizes, number of units or quantity in the lot. So a portion of the material or group of units taken from a lot which serves to provide information for reaching a decision regarding acceptance. So from that lot, you take a sample, like for which you get information like, is it good? Is the yarn quality good? Is the printing good? Is there any complaint with the machinery, etc.? Okay. So a specific plan will be stating the sample size, how many are there, how many, if it is, if there is in the amount of sample, for example, 100 samples taken, okay, and you see it is a printed garment, okay, printed dupatta is taken, okay, and you see that for in 20 of the sample dupattas, you see that the color is, the design is not printed properly. So they have to decide if you are going to reject it or you're going to accept it. Okay. So the sample size is the number of units or quantity in the sample. And AQL is the acceptance quality limit. Means the maximum percent defective or maximum number of defects per 100 units which can be considered satisfactory as process average is termed as acceptance quality limit. So how many number of, for example, 100 pieces you are taking, how many defects can you accept? If it is one or two, they might accept. Okay. Because, or else if suppose 30 of the samples or 40 of the samples are defective, what you do is you have to reject the entire lot. That's what people do, because there will be a lot. What rejecting means, what happens is when you reject a lot, I'm sure all of you have seen certain shops called export surplus shops, etc. When these they have, when you're exporting clothes materials from here, from India to other foreign countries, etc., what they do is they have rigorous quality inspections, quality checks and all. So what happens is so initially what we do here is we do a quality check here. So if it's not acceptable, what they do is they can sell it to at a very cheap price to these express surplus shops, etc. They might have very little small defects, etc. There might be some, there might be one missing button or something like that. Any defective material. So what they do is they can to keep it for they can reject it for main supply, and instead they can supply to any other like these suppliers, etc. Okay, so these people can sell it, so it won't go to waste as such. So this explore surplus shops, etc., can buy it, and also they can sell it for a cheaper price compared to the normal lot. Okay, hope it is clear to you all. So acceptance quality limit is the maximum percent defective or maximum number of defects per 100 units, which is considered satisfactory. Now coming to the different characteristic, we'll be discussing each characteristic in detail. The fiber characteristic. So for each stage, from the fiber, from the thread or the fiber stage to the garment stage, it will be you need to undergo a lot of quality tests. Okay. So if if the base of the garment, any cloth you're wearing, naturally the base is the fiber, right? Like cotton or whatever it is. So if the fiber is not good, definitely it will not produce a good garment. So in the fiber stage itself, you need to undergo quality checks. So fiber length. So fiber length is really a measure of quality. So fiber length is also measure of the strength. So fiber strength, fiber length is like the bigger the fiber, the longer the fiber, the better quality it is. And also the fiber strength. So how much tension can the fiber withstand or sustain before it breaks. So it is expressed as tenacity or tensile strength or breaking strength, etc. So that is also very important. Now there is fiber elongation. For example, especially in knitted garments like sweater, etc., you need to have an elastic nature. Or like for socks. So if fiber is not elongated, for example, socks and all, if the fiber does not have good elasticity, then naturally it will not be good. Then come to fiber fineness. Now, fineness is the thickness of the individual fiber in a textile material. So it is also very important for determining the quality and characteristics. So fiber fineness refers to the diameter or the thickness. Just remember this, fineness means thickness or diameter. So it is expressed in two units. One is denier. Please make note of this. Denier is a unit of measurement that expresses the weight of a fiber in grams per 9,000 meters. So if a fiber has a low denier value, indicates a very fine and lighter fiber, while a higher denier value indicates a coarser or a heavier fiber. Okay, so please make note of this unit of measurement. It is called as denier, and another unit is called tex. Tex is another unit for fiber fineness, representing the weight of a fiber in grams per 1,000 meters. So denier is the weight per 9,000 meters, whereas tex is weight in grams per 1,000 meters. Okay. So lower tech value again corresponds to finer fiber, and so it depends. If a fiber is very fine, it means that it will be having a very soft texture. And the heavier it is, it will have a hard core structure. So finer fibers often contribute to a softer, smooth fabric, while coarser fabric may result in a rougher texture. For example, a jeans, and in the other one, like finer fabrics for really soft materials. Okay. So this is also very important for breathability, absorbency, drape, etc. in the final product. So that is why it is very important to know the fiber fineness or thickness. Now coming to the next stage, in fiber, what you see is fiber strength, then fiber elongation, fiber fineness. Okay, that is the length of the fabric, fiber, then the elasticity of the fiber, then tensile strength, and you will see the fineness of it. Now coming to the next stage, that is when it is the yarn stage. So here also again you will find the count or linear density of the yarn, the measure of yarn thickness. So indicating the mass per unit length. Here also thicker the yarn, the thicker will be, heavier it will become. Then twist per unit length, that is called as TPI. Now these materials, these things have been discussed in detail in earlier classes about yarns and all. Hope you have gone through it. So the number of twists in a yarn over a specified length is called as twist per unit length. Now, evenness is represented by 2%. It's just the uniformity of yarn thickness. Now comes strength or release strength or single yarn strength is a force a yarn can withstand before breaking. So this is basically just like tensile strength also. This is called as release strength. Then the CSP is count strength product. It is a measure of yarn count, the number of yarn and the strength. Okay. So that is called as count strength product. Then comes yarn appearance by grading. So evaluation of the yarn characteristics based on the visual and tactile criteria. So all of basically is an objective measure. Then comes another measure. It's called hairiness index. So especially if you see how many loose fibers or protruding hairs are there. So for example, in sweaters and all, you might have seen, after 2-3 washes and all, the fiber that having a high hairiness. No, that is the correct. Finally, the one. Just one. Just one having this color. One. Where I mentioned, where I mentioned that and that, like that, filer one. Filer one. Just I want that me like.
Now coming to the next one, independent the one diameter ranges throughout the leg. Now the terms are, so let's come into the fabric. That is, after the yarn, we are actually moving into the fabric.
Okay, weaving into a fabric. So dimensions, okay, just a minute. So first one is grams per square meter. It is the weight of fabric per unit area indicating its density. Dimensions of the fabric is measuring the specifying the length and width of the fabric. The next one is thread per unit length. How many density of the threads woven or knit into the fabric. Okay. Next comes the tightness fabric. How close or compactly the fabric structure is. For example, in some materials you see in inners and all that, you see that the fabric is not very tightly woven together. Okay. So that is what is the closeness or compactness of the fabric structure. Then tensile strength, as I mentioned earlier, is the maximum load a fabric can withstand when stretched. Okay, when you're stretching the garment, how stretching the fabric, how much it can be stretched before breaking. Tearing strength, again, how much it can resist tearing. Dimensional stability is how long, how much you can, how flexible it is. Okay, so how much, after, even if you are twisting and turning and twisting the garment, after some time, will it regain its normal self? That is what is dimensional stability. Even bending modulus, that is also another similar term, which means that measures related to how a fabric maintains its shape under stress, especially when you're crushing it, etc. And when you just take it out, how is it looking? Abrasion resistance is how much pressure it can withstand. For example, for example, you are vigorously washing it with on top of the rock or something in a stone. Some people, like in the traditional method of washing, like you put it on the stone, etc. Rub it very vigorously, and still if it is not tearing, that means it is having good abrasion resistance. Air permeability is how much air can freely pass through it. For example, in cotton clothes and all, the air permeability is very good, right? You feel very cool. But in the case of polyester material and all, you find it very hot, because naturally the air cannot go inside, so air permeability is lesser. Then coming to the next one is bursting strength. This is also force required to rupture a fabric under pressure. So how much the it can withstand pressure. Then ballistic strength, ballistic, if you have noticed, this term is actually uh, it's like used to bullets, projectiles, etc. How resistant a fabric is to penetration or deformation by projectiles. Like for example, bulletproof garments, etc. have good ballistic strength, because nothing can penetrate through it. Then drape is how a fabric hangs or falls, indicating its fluidity and flexibility. Freeze recovery is how, just like how I have crushed the garments, and afterwards when I just pull it back, it should look very clean without any wrinkles. That is called as crease recovery. For example, when you are crushing cotton garments and all, I'm sure it will not be looking good right after you are putting it back. But in the case of any materials like polyester and all, even if you wash it, after putting in the washing machine also, it just, you don't need to iron it. So that is what is crease recovery. Pilling is the formation of small unwanted balls of fiber on the fabric surface due to wear. For example, after 2-3 washes and all, some cotton materials or any other material also can to have some loose hair, loose fibers. Now coming to different properties of fabrics. One is water absorption test, like especially for towels, cleaning cloth, nappies, diapers, etc. So for cloth, diapers, and all, it's very important that it should be very absorbent. What is the use of a diaper? It has to absorb. Even we have now, sanitary wares. Um, period underwears, etc., which claims to be very highly absorbent, because even if there are a lot of liquid comes in, you can absorb those that much amount of liquid. That is what is water absorbance. So water repellency is also an important test for the fabric, and like for example raincoat. So particularly those fabric which is used for outdoors require the material to be more or less impermeable to rains. That is, the rain water should not come in. That is what is raincoat. Even for tent, tarpaulin, etc., need water repellence. So it should, repel water. Water absorption means it should be able to absorb a lot of water. Now, waterproof fabric is one that is coated to form a continuous barrier to the passage of water using, for example, rubber, polyurethane, PVC, etc., or wax coatings can be done for these waterproof fabrics. Now, showerproof fabrics are also the ones that have been treated in a way as to delay the absorption and penetration of water. Now, the next test is drape testing. Drape testing is how the fabric hangs under its own weight. Some fabrics might be very very stiff. For example, you see this is a very stiff, and it just goes, it'll make you look really big, I mean fat. But in some cases, it looks like it's very fluid. Like you can see in the first picture over here, it makes you look very thin. Okay, because it just clings to the body. You can see this. And this the one in the middle is a medium medium drape. Okay. So a drape is like, you can't say low drape is good or a low drape is or a good drape is good. It depends on the type of body that you're wearing. If you're thin and you want to appear a little more, bigger, you will go for a lower drape. Okay, like a stiff garments, etc. So that is what is drape. It's how the fabric hangs under its own weight. So a certain, it's like very fluid or very high drape means basically it will just be very little. I mean, it's just it is not very stiff. So the next property is crease resistant. So as I mentioned earlier, um, crease resistant is how wrinkle resistant. If there is no need of iron box, so you see creasing of a fabric during wear is not a, it's like a it's a, you don't like to happen, right? Like for example being wrinkled, etc. So it's not a change that is generally desired. There is creasing of a fabric which is having a wrinkled appearance. So the ability of a fabric to resist creasing is the it's mainly based on how it is constructed. So, there are different machines to check how crease resistant it is, etc. And there are materials which are completely wrinkle resistant. So, it's so convenient for us, right? You don't need to use an iron box at all when you're having a wrinkle resistant or crease resistant material. Now, coming to the next one is pilling resistant. Now, pilling is this, as I have mentioned earlier. So, pilling resistance is like having little pills or entangled fiber clinging to the fabric surface, giving it a very dull appearance. So pills are formed by rubbing action, especially on loose fibers which are present on the fabric surface. So you can see there are different loose fibers. See, so abrasion resistance is expresses a number of rubs required to cause a breakdown in the test specimen or to have an acceptable visual change. So abrasion resistance is when you're rubbing it and all, if it is tearing. That is called as abrasion resistance. So assessment of pilling resistance can be carried out in laboratories, which relies on intensive standardized, there are machines. They will have a brush and they will assess how good it is. So there are different grades. It's a 5-point grading rating scale, and grade 5 will correspond to pilling resistant material. So while grade 1 indicates very severe pilling. Okay. So you can see that grade 3 indicates a moderate surface pilling. So how good the pilling is. So if it is grade 5, it means it's highly pilling resistant. You won't see something like this. Okay. So grade 1, so this kind of material can be called as a grade 1. So it's just like indicates severe pilling. So hope you're clear about what is pilling. So you see these are the loose fibers which are present all over. Now coming to the next very important term, that is color fastness. Color fastness test is very important. It will reveal how fast the dye is. What do you mean by fastness of the dye? We hate it when when you're washing the clothes for the first time and you can see some, if it is a blue cloth, the entire water will be blue, right? So that's like very undesirable, right? So color fastness means the ability of the color to stick, or the dye to stick with a garment and not bleed. So color bleeding means color just goes off. So what happens is, suppose you have purchased a red garment. Okay, after one wash, it becomes pink. All the red color, all the brightness is gone. So it is not not at all desirable. So how much loss of color is there due to prolonged use? So there, it can be measured to a gray scale for rating. Color fastness describe the tendency of a material to change or lose its color when subjected to some external agent. Usually it is washing. So the color of the fabric may get faded due to, even if you put it in sun, even if you don't wash it, if you just put it in the sunlight also, it can fade. Then due to rubbing, washing, etc. And also due to perspiration. Yeah, you don't even need to wash it. Sometimes when you just wear it in a bright sunny day, and if you sweat in it, you can see that their entire body becomes colorful. So all the color fastness is done is separately. There are different types of color fastness test due to light, rubbing fastness test, washing fastness, perspiration test. So all this should give a positive result. Now coming to this different standards. So AATCC is American Association of Textile Chemists and Colorists. So they will describe different types of color fastness tests. So this is based on their standards. SDC is a Society of Dyers and Colorists. So they will also have some color fastness, guidelines. Then ISO, which is the International Organization for Standardization, they have also some grades for color fastness. Okay. Now, the next important problem is shrinkage. So shrinkage is when the fabric becomes smaller than the original size, usually during washing. So the cotton fabric suffers very bad advanced is shrinking and creasing when you are subsequently washing it. Or during subsequent washing, what happens is the cotton, if it is cotton, then it becomes smaller in size, and also there is a possibility for wrinkling or creasing. So different types of shrinkages are there. Sometimes the length becomes less, sometimes the width becomes less. So it can be any. So how do you test shrinkage? So first of all, the sample which is done with the shrinkage test is spread on the table, and then a glass template is put on the sample fabric, which is of square, and then there are different marks are kept. Okay. And the distance between the mark is 35 centimeters. So it is a specific distance will be kept. And then after the sample is then sewn by a hand sewing machine, and then it is ready for washing. And after the at that initially what happens is fabric is kept, and then what you do is you keep a template on top of it, which is square, and you will mark all the places and how big or how the distance keep between each the marks, etc. And then after that you are washing it, and you are washing it at a standard temperature of 60 degrees Celsius for 1.5 hours. And after washing, you're taking it out, drying the sample, and then you're just checking how much is it the same size as earlier, or has it decreased in size. So that is what is a testing for shrinkage. So the garment, so this is still the fabric stage. Okay, fabric stage, we have tested what all we have tested: the shrinkage, we have tested the color fastness, we have tested the pilling resistance, crease resistance, draping, or water absorbance, all those tensile strengths, air permeability, all this, for a fabric stage. Fabric means the cloth stage. And the last stage is the garment stage. So that is the last stage. Okay. Even the garment stage, before it reaches the customer, it also undergoes several tests. So after all the, after it has passed the fabric test, fiber test, yarn test, fabric test, and then it becomes a garment. And after the garment test, you have a GSM test. It's very important. Please make note of it. GSM. GSM is the grams per square meter. GSM, grams per square meter. And it is one of the most important methods of determining the weight of the knitted fabric or non-woven fabric or paper. So woven fabric with coating are not as commonly tested using the GSM method. It provides a weight per unit area. So that is called as a GSM test, usually for sweaters, fabrics, all that. Now, how do you measure this? So the grams per square meter or the dimensions of the fabric are taken. So how do you calculate it? Like the weight is calculated and there is a standard measures. You don't need to know what is the what do you say, the formula or anything. You just need to know there is something called as grams per square meter. Okay, so and this is usually done for on these knitted fabrics, etc. Now the next one for woven fabrics, what happens is you do the thread count. Okay, thread count, I'm sure all of you have seen, like especially when you're buying bed sheets. Okay, bed sheets. Even if you go online to purchase a bed sheet, you will see this the word thread count, like 180 thread count, 140 thread count, etc. So more higher the thread count means better the quality. Like more threads per square inch. That is called as how many threads are there per square inch. That is called as the thread count. Okay. So the more, like for example, if you are buying a bedsheet which is 200 thread count, means it's a very durable, it will be very high quality compared to a 140 thread count bedsheet. So 140 thread count bedsheet will not last as long as a 200 thread count bedsheet. So if you see, the price will also be higher as the thread count increases. So lower thread count is less threads per square inch. So it will look like a net. Because I'm not talking, it will look like a net. I'm telling the threads, number of threads will be lesser. Okay. Now, what are the different types of other than the thread count or the GSM? There is something called as a seam slippage test. So this is like the tendency for a seam to open due to the application of a force which is perpendicular to the seam direction. So certain, for example, certain materials which are not good quality, just one stitch might be there. Very thin, just one machine stitch without any interlocking or anything. It's just one wear and it just tears. Okay, so yarn slippage is there. So that means seam slippage test, it will fail. So the seam slippage is a condition where a seam sewn in the fabric opens under load. So it just opens up into two different fabrics. Okay. So some of this gap may close on removal of the load, but some of it may be a permanent deformation. So it just opens up. Then comes shrinkage. So seam slippage test is done in garments because the stitching is not proper. Then shrinkage test, again, the fabric becoming smaller than its original size, usually when you're washing it. And the biggest, the usually suffering is cotton fabric suffers the most. Synthetic fibers like nylon, polyester are less prone to shrinking than others. Now, again, the final garment is again inspected visually for any defects. Then it is checked for dimensions like size, length, width, etc. as per the specification, and as also checked for the correctness of care labels. And then it is, assess the fabric shrinkage due to washing. So there are certain other special methods are also there. For example, bulletproof vest or tent cloth, spacesuit, all that require different tests, not the normal test. For example, like ballistic test is there for, if it is bulletproof, you need to undergo, like nothing should penetrate. And moisture vapor transmission test for all those, water repellent clothing, etc. Then thermal comfort test, etc. So all these are different types of tests. Now, another one is a fabric comfort test, which is used to test the low stress mechanical property of the fabric, which is done by something called as a Kawabata evaluation system or by using FAST system. So it is how, the comfort test gives the tailorability of the fabric. So these are special tests which are not usually done in normal clothes. So these are the different terms again, like weight per unit area. Like weight of the fabric is expressed in terms of mass per unit area. Then weight per square meter. So this is a usual method, like how to, like these are all terms, to which signify or which tells about, which gives you an idea about the quality. The thread density, again, how many measure of the number of warp or filling yarns per inch or for woven fabrics or number of bales and courses per inch for knitted fabrics. So all these are thread density, how many number of warp or filling yarns are there per inch, etc. Then crimp percentage is how, the crimp is usually the mean difference between the straightened thread length and the distance between the ends of the thread. So you don't need to remember all the definitions, etc. So basically, you need to have an overall idea about all these different terms and where it has been used and all that, like tensile strength, bursting strength, tearing strength, etc. Okay. So I have also given in the group different terms so that you are familiar with all those terms. Okay. Hope it's clear to all of you the different terms which are used in textile and different terminologies, etc. Now, hope it is clear